One of our big stories that everybody is talking about tonight, even though it's a holiday week, so many people asking about the Michigan redistricting and the commission adopting that final congressional map. How many challenges will come ahead of this? Well, we're about to get it started right now with a special edition of Let It Rip, a shortened version nonetheless, but one that has a power play of people who are involved right now. Joining us now, Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, Representative Alyssa Slotkin also joining us today, Jamie Rowe, Rocky Rachowski, Greg Bowens. And we're glad that all of you are with us tonight. Thanks for joining us here on the special edition of Let It Rip. Let's begin here with kind of the latest and how this is going to affect people. There's people who are watching today who are saying, how will this really affect me if this particular plan moves forward? And we'll start with you, Representative Slotkin. Your thoughts on this final map that they propose.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've all been waiting for District Day, D-Day, as we call it on my team. We've been waiting to see the final announcements. And I think we all watched the process and it had ups and downs, but largely it did what it was intended to do. You had a bunch of citizens who came together and came up with districts that are in general more competitive than the ones that were there beforehand. So people are going to have to adjust. You're going to have probably a new representative in some form or fashion, either state or federal. But I think this is what we voted in 2018. It's what the majority of Michiganders wanted, and it worked out largely the way it was intended.
Rocky Rachowski, you've been pretty vocal about this as you take a look at these lines and you take a look at this proposal. Your thoughts as you see this?
Well, this whole commission has been a bait and switch. I'll be very blunt about how I feel about it. I think it was a bait and switch. We were promised a commission that was going to be independent. We were going to have independents, Republicans, and Democrats, and then we find out that some of the independents turned out to be Democratic donors and Democratic activists. We find out that some of the Republicans aren't even Republicans. So, we look at these maps, and I appreciate Congresswoman Slotkin's putting lipstick on a pig and calling these districts more competitive. These districts violate the Voting Rights Act, put our urban community and our minority districts, or at least the individuals that could have represented minority districts, at risk. And you're seeing Democratic, I think the 13th congressional district, the Democrats basically saying that this needs to go to court, and you'll see a lot of court challenges.
Yeah, I want to ask you, Congresswoman Dingell, a little bit about this. We take a look at these districts. If this indeed does pass, two majority black districts in Detroit, in the Detroit area here in Metro Detroit, go away. That is very concerning to a lot of people.
Well, I don't know that two minority districts go away. Detroit is split into two cities. People felt that Detroit should not just be in one city. I think there's going to be a lot of change. I think almost every member of the delegation is impacted, and I think the people that they represent are impacted. Dave Wasserman from Cook's Political Report said today that this could end up being a 9 Republican, 4 Democratic map if we have a red year. So, we voted for this process, as Alyssa said 2 years ago. A lot of people have made a lot of comments. I think the commissioners listened to the comments, and we are where we are. And I know there will be court challenges. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to run in a district that's got 60% of my current district, and I think a lot of other people are making those kinds of decisions today.
Jamie Rowe, when you take a look at the integrity of this panel that came up with this, are you concerned at all by what you saw? You heard Rocky talk a little bit about who was voting and with what interests in mind.
Yeah, I think a little bit, but I think most of the people who actually were members of the commission, I think, did so in good faith. There were some, I think, that were disingenuous about their background. I think what they got was really bad legal advice. Michigan has had, since the enactment of the Voting Rights Act in 1964, Michigan has had 2 majority African-American congressional districts. After this year, it will have 0. There are none. And I think it really puts at risk what is at stake in the Voting Rights Act and representation from Detroit. I was at the Detroit public hearing in October, and they heard loud and clear that the people from Detroit did not like those maps, and they did nothing to change it. And the bigger thing you're going to have to watch in the legislative maps from Detroit is that you could have a state Senate next year that has 0 individuals who live in the city of Detroit in the state Senate.
That's right.
Greg, what are your thoughts on that when you see this? I mean, the fact that you have these 2 majority black districts that are really at risk of going away. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, these maps reflect the reality that there are more black people living outside of the city than are living inside of the city right now. And whenever you hear Republicans talking about trying to defend black people's voting rights, you better look at that suspiciously. So I don't give cotton to anything that Rocky over there says about the way that this thing is drawn.
Wasn't black voters at the Detroit, wasn't white Republicans at the Detroit hearing. It was black Detroiters.
Here, Republicans have never, ever done anything good for black people or Democrats in Detroit.
Really?
Period.
Civil Rights Act, Emancipation Proclamation, Greg?
You guys, that wasn't
Really?
you, Chester.
Never?
That wasn't this party. But the reality is that you guys, over the years, since 1984, going all the way back to Engler, have packed black people in Detroit and other places as a way to limit our ability to have voice and representation.
If you want your voice signed, if you want zero,
and that is the honest to God truth.
From Detroit
So
in
there has
state
to be
Senate,
some,
then you'll love this.
Well, Jamie, Greg, there is so much more that needs to be talked about this Michigan Redistricting Commission and what they will do. Legal challenges are afoot, perhaps, and we know that we don't know how many will be there, but we know it'll be a strong wave of people, both black and white, that are concerned about what's happening with this commission. When we come back, we're going to be talking to our panel about that new window that the CDC is proposing in terms of how long you have to actually quarantine after getting COVID. Now down to 5 days. Is that safe? What will happen next? We'll take a look at that next. All right, welcome back to the special edition of Let It Rip as we take a look at our esteemed panel as they reflect on this new CDC guideline that says that the quarantining should be cut from 10 days to 5 if you end up with COVID. Some people say this is just good business sense. Other people say it's not really good for your health. And I want to open this up to the panel and begin with Congresswoman Dingell. Congresswoman, your thoughts on cutting this from 10 to 5?
I think it's complicated. I hope that people, if they still have symptoms, still have a fever, will listen to the advice and not return to work. I feel like I have an avalanche of friends and family that are getting COVID. We need to take it seriously. People are still ending up in the hospitals. Our hospital systems are really worried, and we all have to take personal responsibility right now.
Representative Slotkin, your thoughts. I know you deal with a lot of the business community, and they're probably telling you, hey, 10 days is a long time to be sitting out on the sidelines if you're not contagious, right?
Yeah, I think the guidance was for people who are asymptomatic, that you test positive for COVID, but you're not coughing all over people. You're not, getting the fevers and the sweats and everything. And I think, medical guidance should guide what we do. Surely it's going to be a boon to our businesses. The truth is, over the next couple of months, every single American is going to be exposed to this next wave of the virus. It's just going to be everywhere because it's that contagious. And I think if we didn't have our ICUs literally at our hospitals over full, then we would be officially in a different phase of COVID. But I mean, literally, we have the National Guard and federal resources, uniformed military being requested and sent to the state of Michigan because our hospitals are that close to not being able to care for people. So it's just we have to follow the medical advice and get vaccinated because these ICUs are just untenable.
Jamie, your thoughts as this Omicron variant continues its surge across the country?
Yeah, I think I just had it. My wife tested positive for it, and I think I had it too. I had a cold for a couple of days, and now I feel great. But I'll tell you what, I'm vaccinated and boosted, and I agree with Congressman Slotkin. The best thing you can do is get vaccinated, and I think it will protect you and keep you out of the hospital. I was down briefly for a couple of days and right back to it. I feel great now. So I think that everyone's going to get it, but protect yourself as best you can and get vaccinated.
Rocky, your thoughts on that? Everyone's going to get it. So do you sit out for 5 or 10 days?
Well, I've had it actually, and I've got the antibodies and the natural immunity, but I think what we really need to be focused on is how we've reacted now as we did last year. We do know a little bit more, but it is also showing us that the experts are making things up and moving as fast as they possibly can with information that's coming out, but it's changing on a daily basis. What we really need to make sure we do is not harm our economy anymore, but we do take care of those that have what would be considered secondary diseases or issues: cancer, diabetes, obesity, heart disease. Those individuals need to take care of themselves and take more precautions because this is a deadly disease for individuals that may have other diseases.
Greg Bowens, we're going to give you the final word here in terms of, the safety of the people out there. Is it at risk in your mind if you sit out for 5 instead of 10 days?
I agree with a lot of the things that have been said here, even from my Republican friends over there. At the same time, we've seen that by simply saying Omicron is less deadly, we're still talking about the coronavirus, which kills people. I'm not so sure that reducing it from 5 to 10 days is going to be all that great, simply because the impetus for people will be to err on the side of I'm okay when I'm really not. And
Sure.
they may, in fact, go back to work, and that will disrupt the economy even more if they go back to work before they're truly asymptomatic and not spreading
Sure.
it. So, yeah, I don't really see this as a good thing.
Well, Representatives Slotkin and Dingell, and of course, Greg Bowens, Rocky Rochowski, and of course, Jamie Rowe and our entire team today. We thank you for joining us on such short notice on the special edition of Let It Rip.